Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of Sights on Sinnoh. This week, I'm joined once again by Manny as we continue onwards to Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl and follow Ash and friends as they journey through the Sinnoh region. Manny, how are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Once again, went through another week of emotions. Saw episode 77 of Journeys. Such an amazing episode. I can't wait till we meet that character in future seasons. A
Oh,
character that I will refer to as the fourth Hokage, just to not kind of spoil anything else for our other co-hosts that haven't seen this series of Diamond and Pearl. And will be interesting to see if that character uses the same strategies as in this episode.
do you know who the original voice actor for Maylene is in this episode?
This episode,
Uh-huh.
she didn't sound too familiar to me. No,
Really?
yeah,
Okay. I'm
no.
very surprised by this, but we'll dive into that then. After I read this blurb here to give you an idea of where we're at. Again, this is episode 16 of Battle Dimension, and it is titled "A Triple Fighting Chance." Dawn's Veilstone Gym Challenge has restored gym leader Maylene's confidence, so Maylene is now ready to accept Ash's own gym challenge. Their 3-on-3 battle starts with Maylene's Machoke against Ash's Staravia. So, to give you a hint, this person has voiced another gym leader in the past.
Okay, in this series,
No, in
in this
past
series, right?
seasons, yeah.
Yeah, I have no clue because my memory is very
Sure,
sketchy.
no worries. I also told JM about this. It is the same voice actor as Misty.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I need to tell her some things because I did not enjoy her as
Really?
Maylene. Yeah, I did not enjoy her whatsoever.
I kind of I wish maybe she was a bit more like aggressive, but overall I think it was a cool fit and an interesting almost spiritual battle between Ash and Misty in this sense.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I yeah, I just if you wouldn't have I still can't hear her that it's her.
Mhm.
She just sounded way different, I guess. She probably was going for something or like probably she didn't want fans to notice it was her right away.
So that might be part of it, but also what I noticed is that ever since she left in Johto and all her appearances since then, she's kind of sounded a bit different. Like I initially thought when we first saw her again in Hoenn that it was a different voice actor. But apparently it's been the same one in
Mm,
pretty much all her appearances.
yeah, because I do remember her coming back
Mhm.
in Hoenn, and she did sound the same to me.
Really? Okay. To me,
Yes.
like, oh, they replaced her. Like, when I first heard her, and then I thought, like, oh, that was the same new voice actor for her in the few episodes she was featured during Battle Frontier. But yeah, it's interesting that you still thought it was the same one there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm telling you, like, if you wouldn't have told me,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way I would have known. But I do know
Mm-hmm.
somebody who did show up here that was also a for kids actor.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if maybe you told JM, maybe if you know. And that's the voice actor for Connolly. Is that how his name is
Yes,
pronounced?
he did sound familiar. I don't think I told JM about that. I don't
Yeah.
think I
So
actually know who that is. I thought that was just the
like,
narrator.
yeah, we've heard him. Um, multiple times. I mean, in old episodes as well with 4Kids with Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one from a cartoon show that you've wanted to hear voice actors appear from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's the notorious Dr. Robotnik,
Okay.
aka Dr. Eggman. So it was really cool that they're getting a lot of voice actors still from 4Kids and from Sonic as well, because I think the show
Mm-hmm.
was still going on during that time, right?
Ah, I don't know. This was around 2007, so it might be.
Yeah, because I remember if Fox Kids was still going on, but I can't remember. Because I
Yeah.
know there's, yeah, it was already, Pokemon was already in Diamond and Pearl.
Right, right. And just before we get too much off topic there, um, what did you? Okay, this battle for me seemed very fast, and I was wondering what you thought about it just overall because there's a lot to break down play by play here.
Yeah, initially, I didn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Felt as a gym leader, she was kind of weak.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because you see right away, like her first two Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
gonna get taken down easily. But and I think it has to do with again the voice acting. There were just sometimes where like her lines kind of fell flat.
Mm.
Didn't feel like they had a bit of like personality to it or anything like that. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in the sub, like she's intense. She has like, the fighting spirit, and I was like literally watched it immediately after watching the English version. And during that the battle in the Japanese version, I was on the edge of my seat. I wasn't reacting that way when I saw it in the English version. So I don't know
Interesting.
if yeah, I don't know if it's a mix of maybe the voice acting or maybe it was the music that they chose to put in the Japanese version that kind of intensified it because there's a moment where Dawn is cheering and I got goosebumps during that moment in the Japanese version.
Mm-hmm.
In the English version, I was just kind of like waiting for it to essentially pick up to the next gear, but I felt like it never did that for me.
Yeah, that is an observation I made as well. That the music has been pretty strong throughout the season, but this one felt like it didn't really match up with what was going on. Just in terms of intensity and tone. I don't know why. It like everywhere else has been pretty spot on, but I think that's one of the things that I noticed the most at first. And in terms of the actual battle, I was at first kind of bothered how Maylene's first two Pokemon got knocked out pretty quickly,
Hmm.
but the way I was justifying it was that it meant we were going to get more time with Lucario battling.
Yeah,
Which,
but I feel like there kind of has to be a good balance to that.
mm-hmm,
Otherwise, it does feel kind of rushed, like you said. Um, but I can't really think of anything they could have done to make it kind of feel like it flowed more naturally. But the battle that we
mm-hmm,
got at the end definitely was one of those good battles that I mean unfortunately for me in the English version kind of fell flat. I think because there wasn't that much music to help out. I mean, I could
mm-hmm,
hear it, but it was kind of subtle. Whereas in the Japanese
mm-hmm.
version, it was like on par, and it kind of gave that momentum to the battle, where it's like, man, this is like a classic anime battle type of feel.
Okay,
Uh, for me, it definitely everything was based to like a 10 in the Japanese battle, especially the last part.
interesting. Yeah, I wonder why that kind of feeling didn't carry over to the English version. Um, Especially if it was just something like music, which I think could have helped a lot for sure. Uh, in terms of any subplots here, we just get Team Rocket walking around the gym trying to steal Pokemon, but instead they get a brutal massage, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, which like they kind of get tricked into, and I thought it was like, oh, the people who are giving them the massages are like trainers at this gym, and they know that they're criminals, so they're going to like do this to incapacitate them. But then we just see them walking around, so I was like, oh, they were just being kind of sadistic about this.
Yeah, it was literally just like a very, very tough massage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because in the Japanese version, or like Jesse was like, "Oh, this massage is effective." He was like,
Mm.
"Yeah, it's too," and then Meow finishes, "It's too effective." Yeah, it gave that like them actually enjoying it, but it being like, "Oh, this is not really what we expected."
Right.
Whereas in the other one, I feel like they came out like not really liking it, right? Because they were kind of
Mm-hmm.
complaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were expecting something more relaxing, but they didn't realize like a deep tissue massage gets in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, like after that, when they're walking around, they look around the training room, and we see a I'd say a bit of a surprise appearance from one of your favorite Pokemon.
Yeah, first I was like, is it cooking something?
Hmm.
But I had missed initially, and I think it was just like training its hands to kind of be more enduring when it comes to battles. Because I feel like you kind of see in the beginning, like Krogunk was looking to a certain spot.
Hmm.
You left me wondering, like, what is it looking at? And yeah, there's that moment where Brock turns to Krogunk and it's like it's gone, and we see that it's in this room, like a pot that's full of like sand is
I
what
think
it
it's
could be.
yeah. I think it's either sand or rice. Sand might be
Yeah, so
better.
I feel like it was probably training its poison jab in a sense because this is like a fighting dojo.
Hmm.
So it would make sense, and we find out that this Krogunk is like super fast because Rocket is like, oh, let's not let it see us, and let's try to sneak away somewhere else. But Krogunk is instantly like right there waiting for them.
Yeah, it basically like teleports outside the room as they turn around to
Yeah,
leave and just blast them off, which is a fun beat.
yeah, that was like a quick blast off for them. And it was one of those episodes where like, did they really need to be there?
Yeah.
But I feel like they use them just to like make the battle feel a bit more longer. That way,
Hmm.
the episode wouldn't be kind of short.
Yeah.
But I feel like that time that they spent on Team Rocket should have been the time that they used to make
Hmm.
the battle flow more naturally.
Right. If anything, this is kind of a reference to the first gym battle that Ash had here
Mhm.
in Sinnoh, where Krogunk also finds them walking around the gym and just gets rid of them without anyone knowing. But
Yeah,
here, it definitely could have been better used to flesh out the battle a bit more, like you said.
yeah, and I might be a bit more critical just because I finished watching episode 77 of Journeys, and that
Oh.
entire episode was a pure battle nonstop. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like the last 2 minutes that it wasn't a battle. So maybe because of how good it was, I came here and it was just like, well, it's not really comparing. But I do feel like, yeah, they could have used that time to add more instead of having Team Rocket basically just be like the comedy plot here.
Right. Just the part for laughs
Yeah,
while everything else is going on, like the battle here. Which between Staravia and Metatype, because Macho just gets knocked out like immediately, and we get to see Metatype fighting Staravia using a combination of Detect, Meditate, and Drain Punch is able to knock out Staravia pretty simply, I guess. Like Meditate seems very powerful here.
did it get knocked out by Metatite? Wasn't it returned because I
Oh,
got confused?
correct. Yes. We do get the confusion status here, and Stravia just
Yeah,
starts like hitting its head on the ground, and
that
has
was
these purple eyes.
That was pretty creepy.
Yes.
Especially like the sound the voice actor was making. It was like, whoa. But there's this weird thing that happens in the sub.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because Dawn, she's she in this episode she's acting kind of like the assistant to Brock, whereas Brock gives exposition.
Oh,
She adds to it. Um,
okay.
but there's a part like when the Staravia gets confused,
Mm-hmm.
she's baffled. Like she goes, "It got confused by confusion." I was like,
In the sub?
"What?" Yeah, she
That's
literally
weird.
asks that. Like, "It got confused by confusion," and it just let me like, she
Uh-huh.
not know this? Like, it's
Yeah.
in the name.
And
Um,
also, one of the big things for her was learning about confusion when she first tried to catch Baniri.
yeah.
And it used
That's
Dizzy Punch, and they're like, oh yeah, that's how you get rid of confusion, put it in the ball.
yeah. So I thought that was like a bit like a weird
Mm-hmm.
that they added because she sounded like she knew everything that was going on. Like Brock would say, I know something to the essence of how the attack when Starivia uses quick attack and then it heightens it up with aerial ace.
Right.
Don is like he says it like, oh, like the speed of it helped it out.
Mm-hmm.
Don says something kind of like I think in this version she's the one that says it like the speed of quick attack helped out the aerial ace. Whereas in the
Yeah.
English, I think she kind of asked Brock how that happened.
Right. I think throughout the battle, he explains to her like what Meditate is doing with Meditate to like raise its attack. But in terms of confusion in the dub, she knows what that is. So it's a little weird the choices they make there between Brock and Dawn because of course they're trying to have viewers learn what that is. I don't know if they spent maybe too much time on that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because I think
Hmm.
they're always with that focus that maybe we might have new viewers with each new episode. But later on with I think it's with Chimchar, I like that they did that detail of kind of um hinting at PowerPoints, not
Oh.
actually saying it. Like when Meditite is using Detect,
Hmm.
and Don is like, man, like with that Detect, like I can pretty much dodge it. Brock is like, yeah, but there's a limit to it. And right when he says it, that's when you see the limit. So we can, I mean, from a game standpoint, you can assume that PP ran out for Detect. And I thought that was like a really nice little nod to the game, but like a subtle little nod to like PPs and HPs.
Interesting. I actually saw it more as how detect and protect usually work, where if you keep using it,
Oh, that's right.
it fails. And that's I think what was bothering me a bit at this point with Chimchar, but it did make a bit more sense earlier because Staravia would go in for an attack, but between detects, Meditite would use Meditate, which is another move to boost its attack stat. So I'm glad they did acknowledge it here, though, where it's like, okay, now detect failed, so that's when Chimchar can get a hit in.
Yeah. But once again, Char as well falls victim to confusion.
Yes, as it tries to go in for a
And
flame wheel,
yeah,
and I like this actually. Meditate just like kind of pushes Chimchar, like it uses confusion to kind of change the direction that Chimchar is going with flame wheel, and it hits a pull instead of meditate.
that was a really unique way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Staravia, it was hurting itself in its confusion, but with
Mm-hmm.
Chimchar, it was kind of like swinging at anything because it was confused.
Right.
And then, once again, Ash brings back Staravia, and I was kind of surprised with the three Pokemon that he decided to choose. I
Oh,
liked it.
interesting.
I thought it was very refreshing that he didn't have to rely on Pikachu for this battle.
Mm-hmm.
But we get to see the new attack from Staravia, which is Brave Bird.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I love the visual of it. Like the bird is like engulfed in flame, and once it reaches to the specific point is just like in a blue aura, and it attacks, and I think that attack got the job done for Staravia. So Staravia is pretty much 2-0 in this battle.
Yes, but it is almost out of energy because Brave Bird, as Brock notes, does inflict recoil damage on the user.
Yes, and
So while Ash does have 3 Pokemon, 2 of them have taken a good amount of damage already.
yeah, and I could be wrong, but Ash's Swallow also knew Brave Bird, right?
No, I think it just knew Aerial Ace.
Oh, it was just Aerial Ace, right? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
But what's okay, this is funny though that you bring that up because I was thinking that when in the previous episode Ash was teaching Staravia Brave Bird. Because do you remember how Swellow learned Aerial Ace?
Yeah, I think it was in the same manner that he taught Staravia, right?
Yes, we actually
Yeah.
see a cold open kind of him teaching Starly how to do Aerial Ace, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! He's teaching it the same way that he taught Swellow."
Yeah, that was really cool.
Mhm.
That nod to his relationship with his previous bird Pokemon.
Right.
And I mean, if it ain't broke, right?
Yeah, it worked the first time.
So yeah, he knew a method that could work. He thought maybe this could kind of help it out as well, and it did in the end. Through hard work and determination and on building. And
Right.
it worked. It was definitely good enough to help Ash get his second defeat in this gym battle.
And Reggie compliments him, saying, "Oh, that's a really agile Staravia you got there with that Aerial Ace." So my idea is that Aerial Ace served as a good foundation for what Brave Bird ended up being.
That's definitely observing because it kind of does it in the same position as how Ash taught Swallow how to do Aerial Ace, with the diving down to a certain point and then going for the attack.
Yeah, it's
Like that.
similar, and to be fair, a lot of the attacks probably that the birds can use in this are similar to to that formation and like angles so that they can store power. But I do like to think there's that connection between the two.
Yeah. So we get the second victory, and out comes the ace of Maylene, the Aura Pokemon, Cario.
Yes.
And I'm not sure. I was kind of like keeping my ears open because I know he's voiced it in the Mystery of Mew,
Oh, okay.
and I think he's still voicing it in Unite as well and in Smash Bros.
But
I was trying to figure out if this was also Sean Shamel voicing
in Mystery of
Lucario.
Mew, didn't Lucario actually talk?
Did it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it had like telepathy there. So there might have been a moment where it says its name, but I think that whole movie it actually just spoke in human.
I don't remember. I haven't watched that movie in so long. I know he voices it in, I think, in Smash Bros.
Okay.
So it was kind of hard to tell if this was also Goku voicing this Lucario, just because I knew it was one of its voice actors.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So
Yeah,
it just came back.
it definitely came back to me. But I couldn't tell. I mean, I think my ears are off today because I couldn't tell that was Misty, and I couldn't tell this was Goku or not. We get an interesting line from Brock in the Japanese dub because Ash once again decides to use Brave Bird.
Right.
And I don't know if I misread it, but Brock says that petty tricks, I think he says pretty tricks, I'm not sure. He says petty tricks won't work like over and over again.
Oh,
That was a very interesting like observation from him. Because I think in the English version he just says, "Oh, he's gonna use it again." Like I don't think it's gonna work out this time.
well, Dawn says, "Hey, he's gonna use Brave Bird again," and Brock responds saying, "Yeah, it's true that small moves won't have much of an effect."
Yeah, so it was either pretty or petty. I didn't
Okay.
read it because it was kind of too fast. That I thought him saying petty was definitely like something that caught my attention.
Weird. Okay, yeah, that might have been just a sub thing because in English he just says it's true that small moves won't have much of an effect, which I'm guessing is in reference to Lucario being steel fighting type and probably more defensive than just the fighting types that they've been fighting so far.
Yeah, because I will say they definitely had their work cut out for this episode when it came to translations. Because there's a lot of different phrases and sentences that got moved around to fit the mouthing of the
Oh, okay.
characters. Yeah, so there's like a lot.
And going back to the characters here, Lucario is voiced by Bill Rogers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if he voiced the Lucario in Mystery of Mew just because that
Oh,
was a
that one was definitely Goku.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But
'cause
he
I think that
does
was like
Mhm.
that was his first role as Lucario.
Okay. Yeah, here he voices a lot of people. He voices most of the Lucarios that have been in the anime for sure.
Okay, so yeah, okay, that makes
Uh
sense.
You're right. And Lucario is able to stop Braybird with Metal Claw and just knock it
Mhm.
out, which I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like it's already taken a bunch of damage so far and now using Braybird for a second time.
I guess we can assume that it took that recoil as well for the
Mhm.
second Brave Bird, which definitely was enough to take it down. But it definitely had a strong showing with like I said again, two
Yeah.
victories, and it took the third Pokemon to take it out. So props Staravia.
Yeah, Saravia definitely pulled its weight, which I think is good, especially after learning that new move. Um, it's mostly been used to just like blow away Team Rocket's haze or smoke, so I'm glad it got a bit more of time in action here.
Yeah,
And
and
this leads Ash to bring out his next Pokemon, Chimchar.
tough task for this Chimchar as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the anime showing just how strong of a Pokemon Lucario is. Instant. There's an instant here. Maylene gives props to Chimchar, saying that it has the makings of a great martial artist.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I thought that was a really cool like foreshadowing because of its fighting type that it gets when it evolves.
That's
Um,
cool. I don't
yeah, so
think
I
that
thought that was
happens
like a
at all in the
cool.
dub, so
No,
that's
she doesn't. Yeah,
interesting.
she doesn't say anything like that. But again, we go with I think Ig and
Like,
Maylene using her. Well, not. I don't think that's the specific order, right? But
yeah, so here like in a very smart move, Ash is like, "Hey, Lucario's weak to fire type moves, so let's do it,
oh
Chimchar
yeah, that's right.
Flamethrower."
Yeah, that's right. It goes with flamethrower and I think flame wheel to go follow along after that.
Yeah, so it starts using Flamethrower, but Lucario's really fast. It keeps dodging it, and as it dodges, it gets closer, and he's able to hit Chimchar with Force Palm. But in response, that's when Ash uses Flame Wheel and finally gets a hit on
Yes, there
Lucario.
you go.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then we find out that because of Force Palm, Chimchar gets paralyzed and we don't find this out until kind of after they question it because they see something's wrong with Chimchar's like, wait, what happened to it? And
Hmm.
that's when it's revealed that Force Palm caused paralysis.
Yeah, so we get to see some of the in-game mechanics here. I kind of like it. It shows how like Chimchar's about to go in, but then it freezes after that as it starts getting hit by Bone Rush. It is able to move again by using Dig and tries to evade Lucario by going underground. But this is where we see some of Lucario's other powers come into play.
Yes. She Maylene I was gonna call her Misty. Maylene asks Lucario to use its aura to sense it, which I thought was really cool. A
Hmm.
great use of her Pokemon's full abilities. Her knowing what her Pokemon is capable of, and them kind of being in sync
Hmm.
and showing that strong bond. I was kind of surprised because when he attacked the Chimchar, I thought it was gonna come out damaged. He really just
Yeah,
made it pop out of where it was hiding.
right. And that sets it up for a Metal Claw. So it does end up taking enough damage. Because from here it gets knocked out, leaving Ash, Pikachu shocked, and he brings out his final Pokemon, which is Buizel.
Bakugo. Yes, Katsuki Bakugo.
Oh man,
Yeah,
I can
man.
see it.
I like the way it comes out, like with its arms crossed, like, yeah, I'm
Hmm.
here now. It's like everybody better take notice because Buizel's here. Um,
Uh,
very cool addition to Ash's team.
yes,
I was waiting so much for this moment to happen, and uh, I kind of had to stop myself from spoiling it because um, I, I I forgot that Brady and Karina hadn't seen this series.
right.
Oh, that was definitely one of those episodes that I was looking forward to, and I definitely enjoyed that episode, and I enjoyed Buizel this episode as well.
Hmm. Weasel is definitely the standout here, and I remember this battle happening the first time. Oh, I have thoughts on how it came down to this, but we'll see those as we continue the battle. Um, so it's down to Buizel and Lucario. Arguably, Buizel is one of Ash's strongest Pokemon at the moment, and he starts off by using Water Gun against Aura Sphere, and it just gets blasted away, hitting Buizel point blank with a Aura Sphere, and then Lucario uses that window to jump on in and try to hit it with Bone Rush, but it looks like Buizel is is able to dodge pretty successfully until Maylene says, "I'm not so sure about that."
Yeah, this is definitely a great showing of Buizel's speed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you can attribute it to its natural fighting instincts that it
Mm-hmm.
probably developed before we even met this Buizel in the
Right.
anime. And definitely was holding its own against this Lucario, albeit even though it was more fresh than Lucario, because
Mm-hmm.
Lucario had kind of had to endure two Pokemon as well. But even so, Lucario was still giving it a run for its money.
Definitely, yeah, and that comes into play here because it's able to just barely nick Buizel with its Bone Rush and knock it back, but Buizel responds with a contest style Aqua Jet, which I really like seeing.
Hmm. Yeah, and it definitely lit up a spark in Don's eye because,
Hmm.
in her words, is like that's the move that we worked on.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like, hey, that was me. You see that? I did that.
yeah, and I feel like Maylene kind of dissed it because I think she said something like, "Oh yeah, that only belongs in contests." Um,
um,
it felt like she was complimenting it, but it didn't feel like it. Whereas,
yeah.
whereas in the sub, she's like, "Oh, we'll take that contest move head on," like
Oh.
embracing that. Yeah, like she embraced that it has a training of being in contests. For her, it kind of added more to the battle. Like it invigorated her. And it was like, "Oh man, like we don't know what this move does, but we'll take it head on. 'Cause that's what we
Mm.
do. Like we're fighters." And I like I said before, Ash is definitely one who's not shy to learn from the people that surround him,
Mm-hmm.
and he used Dawn's move and used it in a way that would benefit this Buizel in battle. Like I said, yeah, like Dawn just lit up because like, yeah, that like I did that, like
Mm-hmm.
that was my move. But it kind of didn't work out in this sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just to show the bond that Dawn had with it.
Right, exactly. It's just like, hey, this is Weasel's first gym battle, and initially it was going to be with Dawn, so this wasn't going to happen. But because of the trade, now this is the scenario we're in. And yeah, going back to Maylene's line, it's basically just that makes sense. It's great for a contest,
Yeah, you
which.
see, I did.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she was trying to compliment it,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of felt like stuck up.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a weak line, and it's also just like not followed up in a great way. So I
hmm
was confused. I was like, is that supposed to be like, aha, like I'm like onto your tricks? or is it going to be like, oh, I know what you're up to, and it won't work? But they didn't really
Yeah.
commit to either of those.
Yeah, because her exact quote in the Japanese was like, "We'll take that contest battle head on,"
Mm-hmm.
kind of like paying respect to it. Whereas this one was, I think, was her way of trying to pay respect, but didn't really hit it as such.
Yes, and I feel like that makes more sense if she did pay respect to it, because in the last battle she acknowledged how Ambipom was able to defeat Meditite with a contest style move.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely would make sense here. But Weasel's Aquajet is able to break through Lucario's Metal Claw, which I thought was nice. And then Weasel tries to follow up with Sonic Boom, and we get a cool little scene with Lucario using Bone Rush defensively.
Whoever choreographed this battle, definitely give them props,
Mm-hmm.
because just like the angles that they chose, and the way that they made the Pokemon shine. I'm trying to remember if it was this scene, but they show it like the bottom end of Buizel's tail, right? When it does the sonic boom.
Yes, I love how Sonic
Yeah,
Boom looks.
yeah, it looked really cool. I think that was one of those moments where I was like, man, it made Buizel look like such a cool Pokemon, and Lucario just trying its best to keep itself in the battle was really cool.
Right.
This was definitely, you could say, two great fighters giving it their all.
Yeah, and as we're all busy looking at Buizel, Lucario uses that opportunity to just come up in its face and hit it right in the chest with
Yeah,
a Force Palm.
that was really a really good use of its speed, and those
Mm-hmm.
moments like you didn't see it coming, and it was like, whoa,
Yeah,
did it really just get up that close?
right. It was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it was like 1 minute, 1 second it's not there, and then the next is just like right in front of me. Like, whoa, like man, what is it gonna do now? Like,
Uh-huh.
Buizel will escape in time. Yeah, it goes for that force palm.
Exactly. And Buizel's also caught off guard, and as it falls to the ground, it's like, oh shoot, is Buizel done for? But instead, as Lucario's charging up an aura sphere,
Mhm.
we get Buizel back on its feet, charging something itself between its hands.
Yeah, and Maylene is first to notice it. She's like, that
Mm-hmm.
light, could it be that water
Yeah,
pulse?
they do
Um,
treat it like a big deal, which I thought was kind of interesting.
yeah, I mean they have that knack of like when new moves are introduced, they feel like a big thing, right? Like when people have
Mm-hmm.
learned Whirlpool, or the first time we saw it use Bide, they made those things feel much bigger than they are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I remembered Water Pulse being completely different. So
Yeah.
I was definitely surprised to see it in the shape of a ball. Yeah, that was kind of cool because it went with. I feel like maybe Buizel was inspired by its opponent, that it
Mm-hmm.
shaped its water pulse to combat and kind of be like, like tit for tat, like, oh, you got your aura sphere, well, here's my water pulse.
Water Pulse has definitely looked a bit different uh in terms of the anime. Like, but I think it is consistent that they try to show it as a spear first. And then sometimes it's a spear that they throw, other times it's like a spear that just explodes into water and goes in the direction of the opponent. But I I like to imagine that now when I play the games, because I think the first time I used it was like in Fire Red and Leaf Green, and it was just like these weird like these weird circles that just flew at the opponent.
Yeah, yeah, I think I remember that. And another difference between, again, the sub and the dub, because like I said, they definitely had their work cut out for them.
Mm-hmm.
Was after Maylene is like, oh, is that water pulse?
Mm.
Ash is just like, oh, Buizel knows water pulse now. But in the sub, Ash actually asks his Buizel, like, Buizel, you know water pulse?
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, he was like more like surprised and kind of like oh
Mm-hmm.
man, like is this actually happening? Whereas in the English, he's like, oh yeah, it knows it now.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool, like distinguishing difference that they used. And from here, the battle picks up.
Yes, it gets pretty intense as they charge in both with Force Palm and Agua Jet, and then both get knocked back. Then they come back in for a Water Pulse and Aura Sphere collision up in the air, and it's so intense it actually just destroys the roof of the building.
Yeah, I mean, you just imagine how much force
Mm-hmm.
was in that, and I think it's a testament to how much they were enjoying the battles because I don't know if it was just me, but every time I would see Lucario, it kind of looked like it was smiling.
Oh,
I
okay.
I don't know if that was done on purpose or it's just the way that Lucario was shaped. But to me, it always
Mm-hmm.
looked like it was smiling and it was enjoying the battle. And we kind of saw in the tag league that Buizel, when it's up against a great battler, like it gives it its props and it gives it its all. Just kind of what it did against Paul and Ash. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it was feeling that same feeling against this Lucario,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and again we kind of get to a point where it feels like this Buizel isn't gonna be able to beat it. And again, I'm introduced to an ability that I had no idea existed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that ability is Swift Swim, which we discover as it starts to rain in the battle stage, with Dom being the first one to notice. And as Lucario tries to
Yeah.
go in for a Bone Rush on Buizel, Buizel's able to dodge it with a sudden burst of speed and keeps dodging it actually.
Yeah, and I like that again they went back to its previous bond with Don because
Mm-hmm.
Don is just like, Buizel, like don't give up, and that's when a raindrop hits her nose. He notices
Yes.
that it starts raining, and that's when we see that Buizel's kind of moving a bit faster. And I kind of had to rewind it because I thought at first Brock said swim swim. I was like, oh, that's a funny, like that's a kind of like a cute name for an ability, but it's Swift Swim.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's definitely an ability that I had no idea about because I'm not really into like competitive when it comes to Pokemon.
Right.
So yeah, it was definitely. I'm glad that I'm being introduced to like moves and abilities that I probably wouldn't have paid attention to.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel like it's a weirdly convenient moment for the rain to start coming in, but as I rewatched the episode, I noticed that there is a bunch of rain clouds in the background,
Mhm.
that are shown throughout. So I'm like, okay, I'll give this a pass.
Yeah, this time they actually did give us a reasoning for the weather.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it is nice to see it, because this is a demonstration of how Weasel has even more potential, as we see the water come into play here.
Yeah, I love that sequence. I think it was Lucario trying to use Bone Rush once again,
Yeah,
and um, Weasel just like moving out of the way like swiftly and just like
right.
showing up. It
And
was
it's
like,
slightly
uh,
different than the last time we saw that
yeah,
because it was able to hit the Weasel at the very end, but here it isn't because of Swift Swim, which I was like, oh, that's a cool comparison to show a significant difference in a similar situation.
yeah, and this is in the part in the Japanese version where the music like just starts taking it to a whole new level
Mm-hmm.
in this ending sequence of this battle.
Yes, as Buizel gets paralyzed by Force Palm, it comes down to a water pulse in the rain versus a force palm at max power from Lucario. But Ash adds a twist to it, quite
Yeah,
literally.
yeah, I thought that was a very like smart and cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Combine two attacks together he goes, use water pulse, but also do the twisting aqua jet, which I thought was really smart of Ash, and
Hmm.
I guess you could say this is the early agile style that was introduced in Arceus because it was able to use two attacks in the same
Mm,
turn. But what
because
a
of
way,
Swim.
yeah, what a way to try to like add the climax of this battle,
Hmm.
and we see Dawn like cheering with her Pokemon, like cheering their hearts out for Buizel. Um,
Yeah.
and in the end, the result that we get, I personally was satisfied with.
Oh, okay. I also liked it. Because as we see in the closed captions of this, Buizel and Lucario both are impressed, and then both collapse, uh, leaving the battle in a draw as dictated by the referee Conley.
Yeah, definitely both of the Pokemon giving it their all in this battle, and none of them held back. It was that kind of respect that they had for each other, and at the end, them smiling at each other, respecting them, showing that respect again. Like you gave me a hard fought battle, and
Hmm.
Lucario saying likewise to Buizel, and they both go down. And you can't really be mad at that because it was one of those moments where like they both gave it their all. So them coming out in a draw wasn't as bad as it might have seemed. Like I said,
Right.
I was definitely okay with this outcome. Like I thought it was probably the best outcome they could have given it.
Yeah. What I find interesting is that I wonder if they went with this outcome to bring an end to Maylene's arc about being insecure as a gym leader, but also to show that Ash is not quite as strong as Paul.
I didn't think about that aspect of the Ash character. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a very good observation.
and like my thought from this is the other gym battle that we can compare it to is the Orberg gym battle where Ash just straight up lost the first time.
Mhm.
But in comparison to Paul, he won with his first try, and we have a very explicit history of how Paul just completely wiped Maylene's team when he battled her last.
Yeah, that's really very observant. Like Eileen's confidence isn't withered as it was, and Pokemon,
Mm,
the anime kind of telling us like Ash still has a long way to go if he wants to catch up to Paul in terms of strength.
right. And I like it. Like I'm glad you see that as well because I hope that's what they're going for. Because it just works on a lot of levels. As we see the end of this episode being Maylene giving Ash the badge still because it was one of the best battles she's had as a gym leader.
Yeah, and I liked how they introduced what would happen in a situation of there
Hmm.
being a draw, where it was up to the gym leader to decide um, what happens. I wonder if there's some petty gym leaders out there that are like, well, we tied, so too bad. But
That
yeah,
would
Maylene,
suck.
right? Maylene, out of enjoying her battle and kind of being reinvigorated and finding that confidence in herself, and I guess a way to thank both Ash and Dawn for helping her
Mm,
out.
hmm.
Uses that Ash is worthy of this badge.
Yeah, I think it's a nice way to wrap it up without completely undercutting the development that everyone's had. Because if one of them loses, it's kind of awkward for sure. But this was a pretty cool way of demonstrating how powerful each of them are, and that they're mature enough to be like, "Yeah, you did a great job, so you get the badge."
And in the battle in the Japanese version, Maylene kind of felt like everything was going well for Ash. When we find out about
Mm-hmm.
swim, let's
Swift
swim.
swim.
Sorry, yes, let's swim. She in the English version, she's like, "Oh, taking advantage of the weather." I think that's her line. But
Hmm.
in the Japanese, she's like, "Oh, even the weather's on your side," which is her kind of embracing that she's getting an even more difficult challenge.
Mm.
So again, I think the English version was lacking just this personality of her
Hmm.
knowing that she has struggles but fighting through it. Definitely made me like that character a lot more in the Japanese version.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. That seems to be one of the recurring themes here for sure. It's just the translation had a bit of a rough time, and it might just be matching the mouth movements. Because, like, just watching through it without hearing it and reading some of it, it feels a little stronger, maybe. So, I don't know. It's interesting. I'd love to hear people's thoughts in the comments as well as if they've compared the two or what they just think about seeing this on its own as the English version. But yeah, that's pretty much it for a triple fighting chance. So Manny, what would you rate this episode?
I'm gonna give this 7.5.
Okay.
Um, I liked the episode. I think the only negative for me was just the voice acting for Maylene, and I feel like not really taking advantage of the background music like the Japanese
Hmm.
version does. Because there were some times where like there was dialogue, but it felt awkward in a sense.
Sure.
Maybe because like during the dialogue it was quiet, there was like no background music to kind of fill in the gaps.
Hmm.
But from the battles that we saw, definitely liked how Staravia was showcased in the beginning. I loved how that same showcasing they used for Lucario as well, taking out two of Ash's Pokemon. And just the whole ending sequence of Lucario and Buizel going at it and showcasing these two Pokemon that are very good at battling. So
Yes, the
yeah,
climax I think did a lot for this episode, and I'm glad we got that because the sound design definitely had some areas where it was not as strong. Um, and I think that kind of weakened the way that a lot of the lines or moments were delivered because there wasn't a lot of things leading up to it and going around it. Like I guess with lots of things, sound design is is just if it's bad you notice it, but if it's great you don't. And I think in this moment, this episode really shows that off.
yeah,
Um,
and is Buizel and its evolution they just stay water type,
yes,
both of them. Oh, this episode made me want it to be water fighting,
that would be cool.
which is really cool, and it says a lot because of the time and effort that the Pokemon company put into this specific Buizel that loves fighting. It
Mm-hmm.
just made me want it to be like a fighter, a water fighting once it evolved. If it evolves into a Floatzel, but I guess they both stay water.
Yeah, it
Right?
would be nice. I wouldn't complain against that. As for my rating, I think I'm also going to give it a 7.5. Watching it by myself, I think for the second or third time, it did really stand out to me how the sound wasn't great. But I think discussing a lot of it with you in terms of the choreography and a lot of like the subtler things in this episode, uh, kind of makes up for that for me as well.
Yeah, and it's always good to have. I feel like a second opinion,
Hmm.
because like I said, I didn't see that aspect the way that you saw it of them saying that Ash is not as good as Paul.
Hmm.
And once you made that point, I was like, oh yeah, like that totally makes sense. And even if it's not as like in your face, like that you picked up on that is a really I think observant note that you took.
Thanks. Yeah, I wasn't sure about it. I think until I completed this episode again, and I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what they're trying to do. And like what you were saying with the powerpoints, that kind of makes a bit more sense for Metatite's detect because it stops using detect after that point. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
that might be more what they were going for.
yeah. Well, at least that was just my theory.
Mm-hmm.
But it could have just been like using it too much isn't a good thing because again we see kind of Brock like saying the same when it came
Mm-hmm.
to the Brave Bird. It's like using it again is definitely not good for your Staravia, especially because of it taking recoil damage.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, this episode ends with Ash getting the Cobble Badge. And as we move on to the next one, that is episode 17 of Battle Dimension, titled Enter Galactic. And it just straight up starts where the other one finished. Now,
Yeah,
mhm,
I'm liking this consistency in the episodes where like they feel like they actually matter. I know
mm,
like there were some episodes that were filler that the first season that we thought, were filler episodes that we didn't necessarily need to watch. That if we skip those, we wouldn't really be missing out on anything. Whereas these have kind of felt like they're all telling one big story.
right. It's not
I
like
like that. Yeah, I like that this picks up where the last episode kind of ended.
because honestly, that last episode felt like, oh, they're going to the next town. That's it. Bye.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought as well. I thought we were gonna open it up with them being like maybe walking in a forest or
Mm-hmm.
on the road, but it starts off with them in the Pokemon Center, correct?
It starts off with them just walking through Veilstone at night with Reggie, actually.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, I
And
forgot about that.
Reggie's like, oh yeah, like Maylene told me how it went. It sounds like it was awesome. Because of course he's friendly with Maylene as well. And what he ends up taking them to is the Veilstone meteorites.
Yeah, and is this location that's in the games?
Yes, actually.
Okay, and it's in the same order as well. Like after you leave the third gym, you go to this location.
So actually, this is in the city itself. There's like an area roped off, and you can just walk up to these meteors.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's in the same. Well, they're still in the same city. That's true in the anime.
Exactly. Yeah, they make it a point that's like,
Okay.
oh yeah, this is part of Veilstone, and it's the landmark that made Veilstone famous. Actually.
Okay, that's good to know because I know that there have been like some places that were just made for the anime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as someone who has never played and for it was definitely something that I wanted to take note of just to know if it was a legit piece of the
Mm-hmm.
game as well.
Yeah, that totally. I'm actually curious now because I didn't quite see them in the trailer, but I don't see why they wouldn't include them again.
Yeah.
Um, for this, Reggie explains that they're kind of seen as the guardians of the city, that they've been around for a while, and people have been traveling all over to come and see them. And that's what kind of gave birth to the city eventually.
hmm And I don't know if I missed it in the English version, but he probably didn't say it. But in the Japanese version, Ash refers to these meteorites as God. Kind of
Oh.
thing. Yeah, because after the information that's given about how these meteors kind of gave life to the town,
Hmm.
Ash is like, oh, so they're like a god. Brock backs that up by saying like, yeah, there's the people here have probably prayed to them for good health and
Interesting.
yeah. So I think they probably took that out because the Japanese culture probably wouldn't have translated as well
Mm-hmm.
to English viewers.
Yeah, it makes it seem like it's much more religious in the Japanese versus the English, which is more like they're guardians. They're kind of like symbolic, but
Yeah.
they have cultural significance and less like worship based interaction with the people.
Yeah.
It's about to have a new kind of interaction with people as we see a helicopter land nearby. As it kind of just flies over the park, and out steps a person that we have seen before in the anime. And
Yeah.
it is Saturn from Team Galactic.
Whereas Team Rocket like to call him in Japanese. They refer to him as lovely fashion
Yeah.
because they think that they are very fashionable, a very fashionable gang.
Yeah, okay, so Team Rocket at first called them fashionable when we first saw them referenced in Eternal City, and now they're like, they even do a flashback here about that, but now they're like, you're unfashionable, and like your hair and everything is just bad. And like I wonder if that's them trying to say like, oh, now they don't like them anymore, so now they're just gonna make fun of them, but it seems like a weird distinction to make now. We cut back to the Pokemon Center where they're just seated at these tables. Like Brock and Dawn and Piplup are just one table, and Pikachu and Ash are at another one, which to me seemed really awkward placement wise.
Definitely, yeah. That was definitely like the first thing that popped into my head. Like, why is he by himself? And the way they portrayed it looked like he was pretty far off, right?
Well, we actually get revealed how far they are. But yeah, the whole time I was like wondering before that, are they like 6 feet apart, 10 feet? Like it just cuts in a weird way where you can't really tell. But I guess Ash just wants a table to himself as he shines his badges.
Yeah, the with Don noting like, that's like your third badge. Like,
hmm
I'm so proud of you. And Ash says, I still have 5 more to go. But again, this is another switch around that they do. The dub for the Japanese version, where Ash he tells himself like he still has a long way to go.
hmm
And Don is actually the one that says you still have 5 more. Um, whereas the English version, Ash says he still needs 5 more. Don says it in the Japanese version.
Mm.
She's like, oh, like you still have 5 more. Like I know you'll be able to do it. And Ash gives this very like interesting line that goes with the observation that you made. Because after Don tells him like, you still have 5 more to go. Like I know you'll do it. Ash says, I don't want to have any more embarrassing gym battles. Which,
Oh.
yeah, and which as a character, I thought like added so much like importance. Whereas Ash it shows that Ash kind of feels like he's falling behind in terms of Paul.
He says embarrassing in the sub,
Yeah,
you mean?
he says it like I don't want to have any more embarrassing gym battles. Which I think in terms of his character is like, he's very aware of I guess his faults. I guess he would consider his loss to work embarrassing.
I
But I
don't
kind
know
of
if I like that actually. I kind of
really,
Yeah, I kind of like it more in English where it's more like yeah, like I I fought against Maylene and we tied, but she gave this to me so I have to show like I'm capable of
yeah.
deserving this.
He says the same thing. Like like I have to show her that I'm capable of it, and then that's when
Mhm.
he says that line because I don't want to have any more embarrassing gym battles. So yeah, he says like I have to show her that I earned this badge
Mhm.
because she put that like trust in me. I don't want to have any more embarrassing gym battles. Um,
I I don't know. I That almost seems like she's like he's backhanding Maylene by saying like I should be embarrassed that you beat me is the implication,
Interesting
right?
because I mean the way I see it is him
Mhm.
feeling like he's not up to par with Paul.
I guess
Kind of feeling
Paul isn't
like
mentioned directly here though.
yeah, he's not.
Oh,
But that was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the take I took away from it, where like he's not happy with the result. I guess maybe the Rourke victory, the first victory his first defeat to Rourke still kind of lingers.
Mm-hmm.
I do see your point of you feeling like him saying that is kind of um, disowning his battle against Maylene.
Yeah, I. That's my interpretation. Is that if he's saying embarrassing, he means like if I lose to a gym leader, that's embarrassing. And since it shows like they tied and they have respect for each other, that maybe it's just the semantics of it, but it feels like a weird choice after what we saw there. But maybe if he
Yeah,
had contextualized it by giving us like how he feels about his last two gym battles, it would make a bit more sense.
yeah, and it could be also that it was more of a like a cultural reference,
Hmm.
that a line that would probably be more well understood for the Japanese culture,
Right.
because that culture is very keen on discipline and being polite and like that. So I do see how it could disconnect
Hmm.
with you, and then in this scene out of nowhere, Brock pulls out a remote,
Yes.
remote control. But in the sub, he actually covers for it. He's like, okay, he's like, because he goes, now let's see. But I don't think he says anything in the English version. I think he just pulls out the remote, which was
And
like unexpected. I was like, what? Where did that come from?
so he says, "So let's see now." Pretty
Oh
similarly,
yeah, okay, yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, that's
but it's
true. It's the
still
same
just
thing.
like,
It's
wait,
weird. Like,
what?
but trust me, he gets worse after this part. Um,
Um,
this
yeah, well, okay.
is
So
just a tease.
he stands up, and we reveal that the tables are like 3 feet away from each other.
Yeah, and we're like somehow sitting in front of a projector.
Right,
Um,
like they're next to some kind of meeting space, apparently, because the wall next to him lights up to show a map of Sinnoh. Um, you know what kills me about this?
what is it?
There is a part of the map that very clearly shows the battle zone, and you'll see where the season goes. But it's just disappointing because they acknowledge it here, but they don't really seem to acknowledge it much further on. But to not get too much into that, Brock is like, let's figure out where your next gym will be by projecting this huge map on the wall in the middle of this public space where no one gets to say anything because Nurse Joy comes in as a waitress, apparently, with three orange juices for everyone.
Again, another one of just like those weird. I don't know why they decided to put um that. It was definitely questionable. But yeah, she does suggest the next city,
Hmm.
which I do not remember because I'm not very familiar with the Sinnoh cities.
Yes, it is Pastoria City,
Okay, there
which
you go, Pastoria.
yeah, and that's normally the next gym you go to in the games as well. She mentions that it's a water type gym as well.
Yeah, and again, this in some reason Ash knows this city. I guess English because
No, I don't
he's
think he
like
does.
Pastoria,
She's
huh? Yeah, because the way he says it is like he knew what it was already.
oh, I mean,
It was just one of those moments.
I feel like he said that before for other cities. We're like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Like he said the same thing about Veilstone. When they were leaving Hearthome as well. But yeah, I didn't take it as him knowing the city.
Okay, well, to me, yeah, to me it came off that way. Like he was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, Pastoria, yeah, I know that city." Um, oh, I guess that was just my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I do think Dawn seems to know a bit about Veilstone City. As she points out the meteorites. yeah, we'll learn more about the city, and it'll be an interesting episode for you there as well.
Yeah, and Ash asks Dawn about the next city she's planning on going to, and
mm-hmm.
Dawn is kind of like, I guess could say, a bit defensive on her answer.
Mm-hmm. And
Like,
Piplup
oh well, like,
notices
yeah, she's like, oh well, like right now I'm still kind of trying to figuring out new, I think, coordinations or moves
new
for
combination move.
the
Yeah.
combinations. Yeah, and yeah, Piplup is worried or knows that something is up.
Mm-hmm. It seems concerned because it can tell that Dawn's lying.
Yeah, and then this is when Brock just becomes creep.
Yeah, and Krogunk is quickly there to take care of it, though.
Yeah, but like, oh my, because he says, like, let's go to Pastoria, right? Like, come with
Yeah.
me. Do you know what he says? Do you want to know what he says? What he tells her
Oh
in the sub?
man, do I?
He legit like goes up to her and he goes, "Give me all those drinks. We
What?
can have a sweet time."
Oh
I was like,
god.
"Whoa!" Like, I was like, "Whoa!" First of all, reading like the first line, like, "Give me all those drinks." I was like, "Dude."
That's
Like, came out super creepy this episode. I don't know why they decided that was funny for them to
that's
put.
oh my god. Is
Yeah,
that
no.
the only reason they had the drinks in that scene?
I'm assuming that that's why they thought. I guess, like, hey, this will be funny. Let's put this in. But yeah, and the tone that he says it to is
Mm-hmm.
extremely creepy. It was something that, like, I wasn't waiting, especially because I had watched the English version first. He's just like, like, come with me,
Oh.
Astoria. And then
Mm-hmm.
this my second time watching it in the Japanese, he's just like, give me those drinks. Let's have a sweet
Jeez.
time. I was like, oh my god, please take
Yeah.
this out.
I'm glad they did take it out. But we cut back to Team Galactic, who is figuring out what to do with the meteorites as they use a spear key from a previous episode to learn that it's made of the same material as these meteorites. And what they
Yeah.
want to do is take out these meteorites and take them with them.
Yeah, and they kind of come into Team Rocket's plan of wanting to take these meteorites as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because we first see Team Rocket there, and then they see as they call him, Lovely Fashion,
Mm-hmm.
in the bushes, and that's when key is revealed, and meteorite starts to glow, and our trainers notice it, and Maylene notices that as well from her Lucario.
Right, they sense that something's wrong with their aura.
And I think Reggie saw it as well, right?
So this is where the second part of the plan comes into effect. As Saturn tells his team members to activate part 2, which is signal jamming, and they're able to use the antennas on their base to just block the signal of any communications in the city, which interrupts a call that Reggie's having with his brother Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do remember him being outside first before the call.
Oh, yeah. So Reggie's like out looking at
Light, right?
he's looking at the light that's coming from the
Yeah.
meteors, and then hears a call, so he goes inside to pick it up, and it's Paul.
Yes. And you get Paul requesting the Electabuzz, and doesn't refer to him as his brother. In the Japanese, he does. He's like, bro, send me my Electabuzz. Which I thought was funny because, like, it's just bro. Send me my Electabuzz.
In
And
English, he just says, "Hi, it's me."
yeah, hi, it's me. And that's when Reggie lets him know, Ash won Cobble Badge,
Mhm.
and get that comment from Paul, like,
Yeah.
anyone can beat that gym. Like, that was just ruthless. Like, damn,
Yeah.
bro, like, are you always this cranky? Yeah, the signal gets disrupted,
Mhm.
and we go to Officer Jenny, who with her investigative team, and they kind of try to get everything under control.
Yeah, so at the Pokemon Center, Maylene comes in and explains that she sense something's wrong at the meteors. So her and Lucario go over there along with all our heroes. At the same time, she says she sent Connolly to the police station to tell Officer Jenny about what's going on. And the police station has a really cool scene actually where they show all their screens are static and officers are like, "Our everything that we have is down. We can't communicate with the outside world."
Yeah, and that's when Officer Jenny just takes charge.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, do this and that, and then do this and that. That was really cool.
Yes. It was like, oh, this is very real. A police station is like falling into disarray, and the leader's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm in charge, and we're gonna do it this way to keep everything happening.
Yeah, and I feel like that officer should probably be like a lieutenant, right? For her to have that much command of like a squad, because
Mm-hmm.
they're not a police squad, right? They name themselves the.
Well, we'll get to that, but I think it, maybe this is the difference between the dub and the sub, but uh, as everyone figures out there's something wrong with the equipment at the Pokemon Center being affected by these signals, they run to the park where they see Team Rocket just getting like tossed around by Saturn's Toxicroak. And
What a way it comes out.
yeah.
Just that menacing side profile and like in the shadow,
Mm-hmm.
you see this big like.
Yeah,
I thought
it's
it was
huge.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool way to show that off.
Mm-hmm. They show it's powerful, creepy, and it just straight up it doesn't care about Team Rocket's motto.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. It was one of those instances where like character doesn't really care for the motto, unlike Ash and his team who always are polite enough to let Team Rocket finish their entire motto.
Yeah, exactly. But Team Rocket is just disposed of apparently for a moment. Everyone runs up and sees that the meteors are gone. Ash also pulls out the Pokédex to see what Toxicroak is about. It's confirmed pretty clearly that it evolves from Kokunk.
Yeah, and in this part, it's revealed what their actual name is.
In just a moment, yeah, because we get flashbacks to the Trina City Museum.
Oh yes, that's right.
And like this seems like a stretch to me because Brock is like, oh, he hears how Team Rocket is referring to Team Galactic here, and is like, oh, this must be who you were referencing? Which I'm like, that I don't know if you would be able to put that together. We also get a flashback to the Unknown episode, but no one here knows what happened except Team Rocket. So it doesn't make sense that either Ash or Dawn are the ones that are like, oh yeah, that thing that happened before.
Yeah, I think it was just for the audience to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But it did feel like Dawn was the one that somehow remembered it.
Right.
So yeah, it was definitely like a little throw off because Rocket was the only one that was there and present at that time.
Exactly. Yeah. And Saturn's just like, I don't care what you guys are talking about. Uses Dark Pulse, but it's blocked by an Aura Sphere as Maylene runs up the stairs and is able to save them from that. But then Saturn starts talking about the meteorites and how they need to take their necessary forms to build a new world.
Yes. He was watching Aladdin before coming and wanted to build a whole new world.
And speaking of Aladdin, we get Officer Jenny just...
Ooh, that entrance, man. Damn, she comes in that bike in style and just revs it up and jumps and flies in that motorcycle.
Yeah, she just powers up these stairs and accelerates all the way into the air. And has just this baller moment of like landing between everyone and Team Galactic, gets off her bike and is like, yeah, I'm in charge here. And thanks Maylene for the tip off.
Yeah, that was definitely a cool entrance, and her just
Definitely puts her
well,
on a higher level than most other Jennies we've
yeah.
seen.
Brock, forget about the Mahogany Town officer Jenny. This
Yeah.
is the Jenny you should be remembering.
This is
And
he has to readjust his tier list after this.
yes, and I think this is when it's finally revealed that they are
Yeah.
known as Team
Uh
Galactic.
right. She's like, "You think the Sinnoh special police don't know what you guys have been doing lately and what's going on? Well, you're busted. You're part of the secret criminals, Team Galactic." Now, what I took from this is that Jenny maybe gets like memos or information about what the special police is doing, but I don't think she's necessarily a part of it.
I I didn't feel that way because the way that they showed her like in screens and kind of taking a charge of the
Mm-hmm.
whole situation felt like she was always a part of it.
Yeah.
Which is why I had that question of like I felt like she needs a higher position.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that case that she just gets memos from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could definitely be either one. Because she does seem very confident, but she never says like me or we when referring to the secret police. So that's why
Yeah,
I kind of
that's true.
I'm not totally sure there. And as it fires off another dark pulse, everyone is able to reflect it using their own attacks. But then a a single dark pulse kind of comes in for Brock, but Krogunk is able to save him at the last second.
Yes, the moment I've been waiting for was kind of hinted here. You see this Krogan just ready to just go at it with its evolution.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was funny that like Brock praises it, but Krogan is like, I didn't do it for
Yeah.
you. It just locks eyes with its Toxicroak, and this Krogan is just a fighter as well.
Yeah.
I feel like this Krogan is an alpha. It felt threatened by this Toxicroak because the way that they were like focusing on each other and really not batting an eye. The
Mm-hmm.
point where Saturn kind of had to like snap his Toxicroak out of it.
Yeah. I love that
Felt
moment.
like yeah, it was just like like hey, like top Krogan here.
Uh-huh. And as everyone's distracted by all this, um, Team Rocket's like, all right, let's get out of here so we don't get arrested and try to sneak off. Saturn's like, yeah, take care of them to his minions, and they send out like 50 Golbat or something. Like,
What is it? What is it with these grunts and their Golbats? Like, is that like a mandatory thing? Like
apparently, like
every grunt.
there's something there. Dawn's able to quickly use the Pokédex on them, but then they're just like rained down upon by these supersonic attacks.
And I like that they kind of um, did what bats would really do in real life, like swarming,
Hmm.
and being a nuisance to the characters.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really cool touch, like just having them fly around and kind of trying to like avoid them or
Hmm.
get them. I thought that was a really cool touch.
I would have liked it a bit more if, like, we saw them like attacking the Pokemon or like actually doing something to the trainers, but it feels more like they're just like awkwardly like dodging it, and it almost feels more comedic than serious to me.
I can see that. I can see that.
But the serious moment comes a bit later as we see Toxicroak and Krogunk going in for a move against each other using Poison Sting and Sludge Bomb. But they cancel each other out, but not before knocking away Team Rocket into a blast off.
Yes, poor Team Rocket was just like, you know what? we're probably gonna get in trouble by association. We should probably sneak away
Yeah.
as best we can. And sadly, they were in line of fire,
Hmm.
and they got what they wanted, right? They wanted to escape. They got blasted
Yeah.
away. Uh,
I feel like the only reason Team Rocket was here was to confirm that Team Galactic was involved at Eternicity, and that was
yeah,
pretty much it.
yeah, I felt the same.
So it could have been a stronger use for them, but I'm like, all right, sure.
Definitely.
And now with them out of the way, we finally see what's happening, which is the meteorites are being lifted into the helicopter, but they can't get close with all these Krogan, or with all these Golbat, excuse me. And as a Golbat just randomly decides to like actually use a move besides Supersonic, Piplup and Pikachu are caught off guard by a Shadow Ball until Ash is able to warn them, but it's all fine because Electabuzz is able to zap away the Shadow Ball.
I felt bad for that Golbat. Like, did you see how hard that
Yeah!
thunder hit it?
It was
I was
just like
dang.
not on screen anymore after that
Yeah,
happened.
I was like, whoa, like,
But very
geez.
typical because it is, of course, Paul's
Well,
Electabuzz.
yeah, this is Paul's Electabuzz. Paul's Electabuzz knows no mercy.
You're a Pokemon, you're a criminal, done. Out.
Yeah, like it's like the Dark Knight Batman.
um, and Reggie steps in using Electabuzz, and everyone is able to start getting rid of these Golbat with Thunderbolt, Thunder, and Bubble Beam. But the meteorites are still getting lifted off, so they start trying to run towards Team Galactic. But Croagunk, who's trying to like stop Toxic Croak, is not able to do anything as it uses Sludge Bomb and knocks Electabuzz to the ground. And as it starts trying to get up, Pikachu is able to just go in solo without any prompting from Ash and zap away all these Golbat, which I was like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I think it's a very it's a characteristic that I think Pikachu took from Ash, because we know Ash likes to jump into the line of fire without thinking as well, and I feel like it's more of a, it sees the Electabuzz as its rival as well, and so
Yeah.
it kind of has, it feels like it has that bond with that Electabuzz, even though the Electabuzz might not acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, like, man, I might not like you, but it doesn't mean I'm not gonna help you, because we're kind of on the same journey.
Right. And Electabuzz also gives Pikachu a look like, why'd you help me?
Yeah, it was like I could have done that by myself. I didn't need your help.
And as Pikachu's looking back at Electabuzz, being like, bro, really?
Yeah.
Golbat fires another Shadow Ball from the ground, but Electabuzz is able to block it with a Thunder Punch. And now Pikachu kind of acknowledges it, and Electabuzz gives him this like smirk.
Yeah. Like, now we're even.
Basically, yeah. And they then stand back to back with each other, surrounded by Golbat, and are able to combine their attacks, pretty much just destroying all the rest of the Golbat that are up in the air. And Dawn is actually very excited by this.
Yeah. I feel like she wants there to be that friendship,
Mm-hmm.
with not just Electabuzz but with Paul as well. So her seeing this team up, I guess we could assume gave her that hope, because it's like she knows how strong both of them are. If those two put their differences aside, they'd be like unstoppable. So this was her being happy to be able to see that moment.
Interesting. I kind of saw it more like, oh, this is kind of like a contest where we have two Pokemon teaming up. At least in double performance.
I don't think she would be thinking that while trying to fight a gang. her life.
Hey, hey,
If that's
we've
where
seen it.
that's where her head is at. She needs to sort out her priorities because
She said combination specifically, so that's why that came to mind for me, at least.
yeah, but I think it was just her referring to them working a lot. I don't think
Sure.
it had anything to do with the with the contest because
Yeah.
she's pretty much fighting for the meteorites. So.
Let's hope. Let's hope. And this is the most unexpected moment for me. Ash tells Pikachu to use Volt Tackle, and we see some sparkles as it starts charging up and running at Electabuzz, which I was like, what? And then
Yeah.
we get a really cool moment. As Reggie tells Electabuzz to use Thunder, and Electabuzz catches Pikachu in its hand, turns around, and just yeets Pikachu, surrounded by the energy from its thunder. And Pikachu just like basically Super Saiyans between the helicopters holding the meteors, and is able to free them from their grasp.
Yeah. At first, I didn't think that's what Pikachu was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was more Reggie that caught on to that.
Mm.
And took advantage of the fact that it saw the Pikachu getting ready. It definitely looked cool. It was definitely a cool moment because I was just expecting Electabuzz just to use Thunder by itself rather than
Mm-hmm.
to give it that extra power off to the Voltackle, which was really awesome. Yeah, just Pikachu screaming at the top of its lungs, going from
Yeah.
helicopter to helicopter. I was like, dang, it must be suffering pretty bad because we know Voltackle also does recoil damage as well.
Right. So there's a lot there, which I was like, "Geez, okay."
Yeah, it was definitely a cool moment. It was like one of those ones like you don't expect when
Mhm,
you see it. It's like, man, this is so cool. Like just watching it, and it was a cool moment.
definitely. And it reminds me of something from X-Men specifically, because if you know the character Wolverine and Colossus, they have a special move that they sometimes use when they're fighting bad guys called the fastball special. And
Okay.
Colossus basically just throws Wolverine, and Wolverine attacks with his claws. So
Yeah, it's,
I was like, "Oh, is this what they're referencing here?"
maybe I feel like there's other characters that do that same thing, right?
Probably, yeah. But I just thought
But
that
it was
was
cool. It was
funny.
yeah, it was cool. It
Yeah, that was just the thing that came to mind for me.
would have been cool. It would have been cool if it was Lucario instead and used Metal Claw because it would have been
Oh,
like Wolverine.
oh,
Lucario's Metal Claw is literally like 3 claws,
yeah.
so that would have been cool.
I did like how they combined their electricity, though. That seemed like an
Definitely smart on Reggie's part to kind of
yeah.
take advantage of that.
And everyone else is really smart and quick here as well, as Lucario does get a moment to use Bone Rush and breaks off the like chains around the meteors as they start falling, and then Dawn
Mhm.
jumps in with a whirlpool from Piplup to catch all the meteors.
Yeah, and my thought was like, if somehow Piplup manages to put it in the exact same holes places that it
Yeah.
was in before, like I'm gonna lose it. Like there's no way it's
Right.
gonna do it. But I was happy to see that it didn't. It just didn't land safely on the ground. But I do wonder how they
Exactly.
put them back.
I'm guessing Metatite used confusion.
Oh, yeah. That's a good answer for that.
This part is the one that bothers me a bit because they start retreating. Saturn calls back Toxicroak, and we just see the helicopters leaving. But I don't think we see the exact moment where Saturn and everyone gets back on. But I feel like that would take some time because the helicopters aren't even on the ground.
What was confusing for me was
Mm-hmm.
when they were first talking about the plan on the helicopter. Saturn was like, if we see any kind of trouble, withdraw immediately.
Mm,
They never did that. Like they
yeah.
stayed there to fight, and it wasn't until the end where like they lost the meteors. We're like,
Right.
okay, well, we have no other choice. Like, let's go. And
Yeah.
they magically teleported to the helicopters.
Right. They definitely missed or like moved the goalpost here a bit, which is kind of odd. Um, but I thought that sequence of them rescuing the meteors successfully was pretty nice, though.
Yeah, that was a cool sequence.
And as they try to get away, Sphere and Thunderbolt are just not strong enough to get them. They seem to get away, I think, with like 2 meteors.
I'm assuming they did because they said they had enough.
Right. And like they leave with 2 helicopters behind them, but then they also only show 2 helicopters getting their lines cut. So it's a little unclear.
Yeah, because there's no mention of it either, right? Like from
Hmm.
the our main characters,
Right.
none of them says like, oh, they got away with two. Like I don't think they
Exactly.
were.
And as they go off into the distance, Saturn says a lot of clues here, which is interesting. He's like, the red chain is next. The lakes are going to be the next target, and he tells them to evacuate the Veilstone base.
Yes. Do you know like his exact wording for when he mentions the red chain?
I think he says specifically after one of his grunts tells him that like, hey, I know we didn't get the necessary amount. He says, our work should be sufficient to make the red chain. Our next stop, the lake.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because in the sub he says we have plenty to make the red chain.
Mm,
Let's head to the three in the lake.
yeah. Okay. So it's a little more detailed in the sub
Yeah.
there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the episode. As we cut to the next morning, everyone says goodbyes. Reggie tells Ash that Paul's also going to Pastoria City, so potentially we might see them there. It's kind of the official debut of Team Galactic for our heroes because we had seen them a lot as viewers, but not as the characters' POV.
The name of the episode suggested it.
Yeah, Intergalactic.
Yeah, Galactic.
But yeah, what do you think about this episode, and what kind of rating would you give it?
I definitely enjoyed it more than the previous, so I'll give it an
Really?
yeah, I'll give it an 8. Like this is definitely setting up for something much bigger. This is like the moment that I was waiting for because I remembered Krogan being very good in battle. So I'm definitely excited to see its rivalry with the Toxic Croak continue and wait for the next time these two meet.
Hmm.
I think just the whole what they're setting up that's to come um, definitely has me wanting to watch more. So an 8 for me.
Nice. Okay. I I'm mixed because the beginning feels kind of weird.
Oh yeah, the creepiness.
That also I almost want to say that this episode feels, even though so much of it is set up well, it it feels like either this one or the one before it was written out of order. And I'm trying to figure out why exactly. But there's just something about it where I'm like, I feel like there was something that was supposed to happen, and now they're kind of going back and establishing that with this episode. Because as we mentioned before, it felt like after the gym battle, the next episode was just going to be them on the road. But we kind of cut to like later that night or the next day, and I'm like, oh, was this always the plan? And that part kind of throws me off a bit. But I do like that it pretty much accomplishes its goal in showing everything that's going to be set up moving forward. But I also felt like the animation here was kind of rushed at points. Electabuzz looks particularly atrocious here. Um, it's like its body is basically a big circle for a lot of the scenes here, and I'm like, why is it like that? Um, I also wish it was maybe a little less talking and more showing in terms of Team Galactic's battle. Like I do like how we got to that information, and also showing how Jenny has some information from the police side that the police are actually doing something here, which is interesting, even if you can't see it on screen. But yeah, with all that, I think I'll give this episode a 7 out of 10.
That's a good rating. I do understand your like reasoning for thinking that they would be the next destination would be them on the road, far
Mm-hmm.
from home. Don't have to be alone. Yeah, I did have that same feeling at the beginning of this episode where like kind of felt like we had skipped over something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think just yeah, I do see that point where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm super glad that you enjoy it even more because I think it's great that it got you more excited to see what's going on later with the story.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
hmm So there's a lot there, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna have questions related to maybe some things going forward. But overall, what did you think about specifically the setup part of this that got you excited?
It's a good setup because it leaves you wondering like if you don't know if this is like your first watch through, is that the right word? I'm thinking
Yeah.
walk through. I don't know why I'm thinking walk through. This is your first watching of the series. You're like, who are the three in the lake? What's the red chain?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm very always the type of person that needs to know like every single thing because I want to connect the dots. So yeah, I'm definitely got me curious. Like, what's the red chain? Like, what's this new world
Mm-hmm.
that they're referring to? What's gonna happen if they do get to the three in the lake? There's definitely a lot of good like world building that they're hinting towards.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely what has me excited because I just want to see that aspect of Ash's encounter with Team Galactic.
Definitely, yeah. I think that it's a great way to set it up. Maybe a few too many characters, but in some ways it does help it feel more important that it's not just them solo like doing this, but in the more logical sense, there's a lot of people involved with it.
Yeah, and it
Uh,
could be because, and it
huh?
could be also because this, this specific story makes it feel more like a typical anime rather than a kids show.
Mm.
I think that's why it's gravitating towards me more.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I feel that same way with Journeys as well, where I feel like it's finally like for me can acknowledge it finally like as an anime-esque type of show
Mm-hmm.
rather than a kids show. So I feel like that's what's gravitating towards me, just like the story, and I feel like a story like this is probably gonna be a bit not too mature, but a bit more mature than we would expect from Pokemon. So just the thought of maybe them, uh, because I know like some fans, obviously
Yeah.
not playing the games, but I do know like from watching Pokemon Generations, um, of what they're planning towards.
Oh, okay.
Just just witnessing it happen in the anime, I think is why I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's gonna be a cool time for sure. But yeah, as we wrap up the episode, uh, just letting everyone know you can watch these episodes on Pokemon.com, Pokemon TV, and other anime there as well as it becomes available. So highly encourage you to check that out. As always, Manny, it's been great to have you here.
Yep, always a pleasure. Enjoying season 2, enjoying Journeys.
It's a good time for you.
Yeah, definitely a good time as a Pokemon fan. I'm very hyped for Legends Arceus.
But as always, thank you everyone for listening, and feel free to leave a comment. Sorry this is going on so long, but as you can tell, we're both very passionate about this, and there's a lot that happened in these 2 episodes. So I think they complement each other pretty well at the end of the day.
Yes. And in honor of Krogon's esteemed rival, I have a poem about Toxicroak.
Ooh, okay.
Written by best poet in the world, Professor Oak. And Professor Oak wrote, "Deadly poison gushes out from Toxicroak."
Oh, all right. I'll give it to him.
There you go. Don would approve. Don would give it 5 stars.
I would give all of them 5 stars. We know this.
That's true. But there you go, people. There's a fun
Awesome.
fact and a fun poem for you.
Yeah, there's your moment of zen as you
Yes.
hopefully avoid getting poisoned by Toxicroak. Oh, okay. You know what's interesting about this Toxicroak also, and with literally every other Toxicroak we see in the anime?
What?
It's shiny.
Is it really?
Literally every Toxicroak we've seen, as far as I'm aware, uses its shiny coloring in the anime for some reason. Because the regular one just looks like the same coloring that Krogan has.
Yeah, right?
And I don't know
know.
why. I maybe it's just to like contrast Krogan and Toxicroak more, but it's very odd.
Where's the sparklies?
um,
It had no because Noctowl kind of had like the sparkles, right?
r-
It's just
uh,
Noctowl. I do
it kind of
remember like
depended,
it had like
but
yeah, but I do remember an episode where like it kind of like
the thing is, like, they don't even treat it like a shiny. Like every Toxicroak that we see just has this coloring. So this seems to be like the default coloring for Toxicroak.
it's interesting because it's
Yeah.
not really the same shade.
Mm-hmm.
The Krogan gets a bit more of a lighter blue, but the fact that they're using the shiny variant every Toxicroak,
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. I wonder what
Yeah.
they're voicing behind. Maybe it is that they didn't want them to look the same.
Right. But yeah,
Definitely
they don't acknowledge it ever, but it's just like this is the world of the anime, the shiny version is the non-shiny version apparently.
yeah. Apparently in Sinnoh you can find lots of shiny Toxicroak.
I guess, but it's also in other regions too, I think. So that's why I'm like I don't know what happened there. But question of the week as we end this very long episode. What's a shiny in the anime that you'd like to see that we haven't so far?
Ooh, Noibat.
Noibat, really? Okay. I would say Umbreon for me.
Oh yeah, that too. That would be a nice. There's a lot. I like the Galarian Zagoon shiny color.
Mm-hmm. You only get one though.
Okay, so yeah, I'll go with Noibat just because I like
Okay.
that color scheme.
Yeah, we've seen Umbreon a few times and it looks great, but I think it would be nice to see that blue circles on it. Those blue circles on it.
That would
But
be cool.
yeah. Once again, I've been Will,
This is Manny.
and we will see you in Sinnoh. So until next time, have a good one, and thanks for listening.
Bye.